Apocalypse of Abraham. The Apocalypse of Abraham is a Jewish apocryphal text that dates approximately to the 1st or 2nd century AD. Its primary focus is the figure of the patriarch Abraham and his relationship with God, centering on a series of visions that the patriarch experiences. These visions concern the fate of the world, and particularly the people of Israel. This apocalypse is particularly significant because it addresses key theological themes such as idolatry, divine justice, and the final judgment. The text was composed during a period of crisis for the Jewish people, following the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem in 70 AD, which explains its apocalyptic tone and its concern with divine justice and redemption. During this time, many apocalyptic texts were written to provide comfort and hope to Jewish communities oppressed by Roman rule. The Apocalypse of Abraham can be understood within this context, a text meant to reaffirm the faith of the Jewish people in divine intervention and the future restoration of Israel. The Apocalypse is divided into two main parts. The first recounts Abraham's rejection of the idolatry of his time, while the second details the visions Abraham receives about the fate of the world. In the first part, Abraham is presented as a young man who questions the idolatrous practices of his father, Terah, and of his society in general. Eventually, Abraham is guided by an angel named Yal, who teaches him the true knowledge of God. Throughout the text, Abraham is led through a series of visions that confront him with the destiny of humanity. In these visions, Abraham witnesses God's throne, the battle between the forces of good and evil, and the final fate of the righteous and the wicked. In a particularly important vision, Abraham sees the destruction of Jerusalem and the exile of his people, reflecting the historical experience of the Jews under Roman occupation. One of the central themes of the Apocalypse of Abraham is God's judgment on the nations and the final redemption of Israel. Through his visions, Abraham comes to understand that although the world seems to be dominated by injustice and evil, God will ultimately restore the just order and save his people. A notable element of the text is the figure of the angel Yal, who acts as Abraham's guide throughout his visions. Yal is not a traditional angel in biblical literature, leading scholars to suggest that he represents an influence from Jewish mystical currents, such as Merkabah, or heavenly thrones. In these mystical traditions, prophets and visionaries are taken on heavenly journeys where they are shown the throne of God and the secrets of the cosmos. During his celestial journey, Abraham witnesses a cosmic struggle between God's angels and the evil forces that seek to corrupt creation. This vision reflects the Jewish belief of the time in a battle between good and evil that will culminate in God's intervention to restore the world. Abraham's celestial journey also allows him to understand that his people's current suffering is part of a broader divine plan that will ultimately result in their redemption. A crucial aspect of the Apocalypse of Abraham is its anticipation of the coming of a Savior or Messiah. Although not mentioned explicitly in Christian terms, the idea of a future Redeemer who will restore order and save the righteous is clearly present. In one of his visions, Abraham witnesses the sacrifice of the Messiah, suggesting that the apocalypse was intended to inspire hope in future redemption. The Messiah is described as someone who will defeat the wicked nations and bring salvation to Israel. This concept of a messianic savior is fundamental to many currents of Judaism and was later adopted and reinterpreted by Christianity. In the context of the Apocalypse of Abraham, the Messiah is seen as the figure who will restore justice and lead the people of Israel to their final redemption. The Apocalypse of Abraham can be interpreted as a reflection on suffering and divine justice. Abraham, as the central figure, confronts the dilemma of the suffering of the righteous and the apparent prosperity of the wicked. Through his visions, he comes to understand that suffering is part of a broader divine plan that will lead to the redemption of the faithful. This theme is common in apocalyptic literature, where faith in divine justice is emphasized, even when evil seems to dominate the world. The text also reflects a theology of exile, where the destruction of Jerusalem and Israel's suffering are seen as temporary punishments that will be followed by restoration and redemption. This message is particularly relevant for a community facing oppression and uncertainty. The Apocalypse of Abraham has had a significant influence on Jewish and Christian traditions, although it was not included in the official canon of either religion. Its vision of divine justice and future redemption resonated deeply with communities that lived under persecution. The text is also important for its early depiction of the Messiah, a figure that would later be developed in Christian theology. Thank you for watching our video. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Give it a like, comment your thoughts, and share this video with your friends and family.